Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of the Pharmacist podcast, Law and Ethics with Paul Summerfield. In today's case, we talk about a pharmacist who's, because of his religious conviction, he made some comments while selling emergency hormonal contraception to a patient. He supplied the emergency EHC to the patient, but while supplying, he still decided to part some comments about his beliefs of the EHC. So, to give you a bit more detail, he supplied emergency contraception, which he said amounted to chemical abortion or words to that effect. That she was ending life or words to that effect. That it would be on her conscience or words to that effect. In doing so, he caused severe distress to the patient and did not direct the patient to another pharmacy to obtain required medication. And he didn't give her any options to go to another pharmacy either. So, in short, he should have if he wasn't happy with giving the EHC, he should have given her the option of going somewhere, but he didn't. So, Paul, tell us a bit more detail about the pharmacist on this whole case and why it caused so much distress to the patient.
So basically, as hopefully we will all realise, a lady coming in for emergency hormonal contraception, it's quite a stressful situation. You're about to give details of an act that's very personal to a complete stranger, and it's in a pharmacy. So you've got a lot of stress already on that patient. So this patient comes in, and as you quite rightly summed up, asked for emergency hormonal contraception, and in short was given a lecture based on that pharmacist's beliefs. Now, what this pharmacist didn't do, which again you've pointed out, is they didn't turn around and direct them to another pharmacy where they could obtain emergency hormonal contraception, and certainly they didn't give the patient any valid options, but they did supply that. Now, this patient went away quite distressed, spoke to her partner, then decided to put a complaint into the company that this pharmacist was working for, and in my opinion, quite rightly so. So when we're looking at the determination on this case, the committee were very, very concerned in relation to how this pharmacist conducted themselves. It was certainly contrary to the standards as they were then. In this case, was decided in 2012, so it's under the old standards. But those can be ported across to the new standards, and we'll do that very shortly. And the committee were less than impressed with the evidence that was given by the pharmacist. They felt that there was an attitudinal problem here. And this pharmacist had very strongly held religious beliefs, which is fine. Nobody's disputing that. However, what this pharmacist should have done is not then impose those beliefs onto another individual. So the committee had all this in mind, and again, testimonial evidence was given, etc., which spoke quite highly of this person. So what the committee then decided to do was to impose a conditions of practice order. And along with the standard notification requirements, as in you'll let your employer know or any future employer, etc., they put on one condition, which is you are not to provide emergency hormonal contraceptive services for the lifetime of the order. The lifetime of the order in this case was 3 years, which is the maximum that a conditions of practice order can be in existence for. Of course, there's then a review at the end of the 3 years, and a committee is then at liberty to act in any which way it sees fit. So if there is fitness practices are no longer impaired, they can let the registrant go free of conditions or restrictions. But if they feel there's an issue, they can reimpose conditions of practice, they could suspend, or if it's really, really to the point where the registrant hasn't learned at all, they can actually remove. In this case, registrant went back and their fitness to practice was no longer impaired after the 3 years, and as a result, the order expired, and that was it. There was no further restrictions on practice. Okay. Hopefully that answers some of the questions.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it does. I mean, actually, it's, you know, as a pharmacist, we see a lot of these patients are coming for EHC on a regular basis, and we have heard a lot of these cases where pharmacists refuse to supply. But generally, if you're not going to supply, you should always signpost. That's the very least that we can do. And if you are going to supply, the least you can do is keep your personal opinion to yourself, and just keep it professional. But the things that he said are obviously very distressing to this patient. And if when I read through the case, she went home crying to her husband about what was said to her. So she obviously felt very, very distressed about this whole situation. Sorry, you were saying?
So basically, although it was decided under the old standards, and you may have seen me flicking around there, I've got the new standards in front of me now. So let's link this into the new standards. So in this case, person-centered care wasn't provided. The patient wasn't made a priority. Mm-hmm. Professional knowledge and skills, you could argue that the skill set wasn't there. Again, it links into effective communication. There was no effective communication. There was a barrage of beliefs hoisted on this patient mm-hmm. when it wasn't asked for, and certainly shouldn't have been done. Professional behavior. Your pharmacist basically imposing their own beliefs onto another, irrespective of what those beliefs are, and they may be strongly held beliefs. It's not acceptable to do that. It's not acceptable at all. So it's not professional behavior. Professional judgment, they could have gone and said, I'm sorry, my own conscience won't allow me to supply this to you, but there's a pharmacy down the road mm-hmm. who will. Ring them up, let them know, make sure there's somebody there, and directed them. Or give them other options, such as, there's no pharmacy in the area to do this. How long has it been, and so on and so forth. And in this case, it hadn't been. It was within the first 24 hours, so there's plenty of time to play with, because at that moment in time, there was the 72-hour emergency hormonal contraceptive was the only one available. So there's still, there was still time to contact the GP mm-hmm. and to get a prescription raised, but that option wasn't given. So professional judgment, professional behaviour, and also leadership. Yeah, a lot of people be going, well, why leadership? Well, when you're in the healthcare team, you lead by example. So, you show others that you are a professional. You lead the team by being professional. You lead the team by showing that you're empathetic and that you can, regardless of the situation, you can deal with it, you can handle it. So there's a number of the new standards there, if this case was heard today, which could be brought up. Yeah? So, let's look at that. But also, there is specific guidance on the GPHC website regarding religious and moral values and beliefs. Very important to read that guidance, because that guidance, if it's breached, can amount to misconduct under Article 51 of the Pharmacy Order 2010. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to keep up to date with the guidance that the GPHC issue. And of course, looking at the wider aspect of this, a member of the public would not expect to go into a pharmacy and be effectively berated mm-hmm. by a pharmacist. They wouldn't expect that. It's not professional behaviour. And I'm sure the registrant population as well wouldn't expect one of their brethren to turn around and act like this in front of a patient or act like this at all, irrespective of whether they're in work or outside work. So that's linking in with the standards as they are today, in my opinion.
And what would you say, so before we end the podcast, what would you say is in your legal opinion, the learning point from this case?
The learning point, in my opinion, is that irrespective of the situation you're in, you must act professionally. And irrespective of the situation you're placed within, you must not impose your personal beliefs onto another person, whether that be a patient or a member of the team that you're working with, at all. Now, that may not sit well with individuals. But
yeah, I was about to say that. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who might not agree with that.
A robust discussion is welcome. An exchange of opinions is welcome. What would not be welcome and would not be professional is for you to turn around and say, I'm right, you're wrong, and that is the end of it. Or, these are my thoughts and beliefs. I don't care what you think. I'm telling you, that's how it is. That is not the way of doing it. There's effective communication there. There's acting professionally. There's leadership. So really, when you think about it that way, there's a lot of things that you need to think about, but also taking into account the specific guidance on moral and religious values and beliefs.
So I think this is like I said, this is it's a complicated case. I mean, a lot of people with religious beliefs, strongly religious beliefs, would completely disagree with supplying EHC, and I have come across quite a lot of pharmacists who disagree with the EHC and who won't supply and they will signpost. So I think that is one of the key learning points here, is that if you don't agree with it, if you don't think you should be giving it out, just signpost them to another pharmacist who will. But don't make the patient feel bad about it. It's completely their decision. It's as healthcare professionals, our job isn't to judge. Our job is to help our patients however we can. And I think for me, looking at this whole case and reading the full details of the case and how the patient reacted, I think that would be one of the key aspects of this learning point, that you really need to keep your personal opinions to yourself, because you don't know what the other person is going through, or what their case is, or why they're here for it. It could be abuse. It could be some more complex situations as to why they're coming in for an EHC. So it's not really for us to judge it's not for us to judge at all on why a patient would want an EHC. Anything else you want to say before we end it, Paul?
So basically, I think you summed it up quite well there. And certainly it's all about keeping your beliefs and your values to yourself and not imposing them, but being able to withdraw from a difficult situation. And CPP do a learning package. There's information on the pharmacy support website, colleagues to ask as well, how best to handle difficult conversations, difficult situations. And if you have to withdraw from a conversation or a difficult situation, then so be it, but it's learning how to do that. I've been on the register now, I'm into my 24th year now, and I still have sometimes difficulty in being able to withdraw from certain situations. It's a lifelong learning process. It's not one size fits all. You need to think about how to do these things, but how to do them effectively. And if it's to the point where you have to withdraw from a situation or a conversation because it's making you uncomfortable, you do so. Because the more you become uncomfortable, the more chance that you're going to say something that may be misconstrued, next thing you know, you've got a letter from the GPHC saying you're under investigation or open investigation. So it's a difficult one. Read the guidance, or especially religious beliefs, but there's also other guidance on consent, privacy, maintaining sexual boundaries, and so on and so forth. Make sure you're up to date with that guidance, because if something happened, one of the first questions would be, well, do you know of the guidance and can you tell us about it?
Mm-hmm. So I think that sums up quite nicely for this podcast. Thank you again, Paul, for your insight on this case. On our next episode, we have the case of a pharmacist who decided to sell some pharmacy-only medicine online on eBay, of all places. We'll have more on that on our next episode. So see you on that one.